Well, the clock is ticking for lawmakers to approve a state budget with the deadline tomorrow. Today, the General Assembly met to approve or reject Governor Abigail Spanberger's suggested changes. Avery Davis joined us live in studio with what they decided.
Hey, Aaron, the General Assembly narrowly avoided a state government shutdown as today's special session ended a contentious budget season and solidified what exactly will be included.
The Senate stands in recess.
Time for debate is done.
With that, the General Assembly sends a long-stalled two-year budget back to Governor Abigail Spanberger's desk, with both chambers accepting all 14 of her suggested changes.
In general, the House was comfortable with those amendments. I considered the majority of them tweaks.
The governor's amendments include a water conservation requirement for new data centers in Eastern Virginia. Critics say it actually backwalks the data center tax exemption compromise they just agreed to and say its language is too vague.
But to take out and strip the protections that we got, in my mind, is just beyond the pale.
The approved edits also delay a ban on open carrying assault weapons until July 1st, 2027, with some Republicans saying the courts will likely block it from ever being enforced.
And I fear that I will once again have the opportunity to say I told you so when your tyrannical overreach is overruled.
Charlottesville Democrat State Senator Cree Deed says the budget season was certainly prolonged, but he's glad all issues, especially data centers, were thoroughly weighed.
I'm glad we finally got a budget, but this discussion has not been completed yet.
The governor also included funding towards elections, cancer screenings for firefighters, and Menhaden research. The edits came with a $62 million total price tag. Live in the studio, Avery Davis, 29 News at 6.